The other one which I think is really important in regard to this is deciding what business you're in. Messy handwriting today, Matt. When it comes to actually, defining and deciding, where your focus is actually going to be, there's often an opportunity which may present itself at different times, which is at a time when you're not in fact actually capable of getting into that particular thing. That's why if you refer back to some of the earlier Whiteboard Wednesdays, we have a very structured strategic process, which in fact not only tells us where our strategic direction actually is, but also puts timelines based on capabilities and competencies as well. We may be given an opportunity to enter into a new area, but we must be realistic about just where our organisation's at, both in regard to its capacity on a pure workload basis, but also the competency. Have we got the ability at this stage to make the most of that opportunity? Because often the business you may be having the opportunity of getting into can become a massive distraction against the thing that you're currently doing at the moment. And in a business term, I might have shown this before, but it's called the Bermuda Triangle of the quickly growing business, where you may have opportunities going like that, but your capabilities may be pretty well straight line unless you can actually invest, and invest further. And perhaps you may even at the best be able to get the line to go a little bit like that. And so it might be okay when you're back here, but when you get to here, you find that your capabilities at this line here, your opportunities there, and you're thinking you can operate there, and that there is called the Bermuda Triangle of the quickly growing business. And it is a very, very dangerous place to be, because once again, it's hard to say no. Businesses find that very difficult because they might see this great opportunity. But from our point of view, as I've said before, we're having a staged process and a stepped process, which from time to time is saying, okay, we love the opportunity, but we're not ready for it. And that can in fact be one of the most important decisions that you can actually take. The next one in regard to this area is the balance between the present and the future. In regard to any organisation, particularly a footy club, it's defined by the present all the time. The result of the last game, the news of the day. We have a draft, and there's an instantaneous expectation on 17 and 18-year-old athletes. And so what you have to do is understand that we are living in an industry which is very much based on the present. It was only a few weeks ago that people were saying, oh, Richmond won't win a game for the rest of the year. Well, they've won, was it 5 in a row? I think now, 5 in a row. So, or 5 of their last 6. So that shows you that even the people who are the experts on the game, who are assessing what's happening in the now, don't get it right always. And so from our perspective, quite clearly, we operate in the present, but we operate in the present to create a means by which we build a future for ourselves. And so yes, we set very high standards of our players and our staff, but we also understand that with a young playing group, as an example, that there's a certain organic process which is required to take place here. You can't fast track some aspects of development. That's why as long as the game's being played, premiership sides have been made up of players who have played on average 120, 130 games. You may have a few young players in the group, but generally that's balanced out by having some very experienced players in the group. But in the main, the group has played a lot of footy together. So they've done their growing up together. So our focus is to create an environment where that's happening now, but in case to build, and with the view of building ourselves a future. So even our strategic document, the red and blueprint, is called Future Now. So whilst we're talking very much with horizons, and our strategy is a horizons model strategy, we're also looking at saying, okay, we've got to set standards now. If we don't start putting in place some of the very fundamentals and the core things, both on a values-based stuff but also a standards-based stuff, well, we're not going to build any future for ourselves. So it's that balance between what you invest now in regard to getting a present result versus a future. If you're in premiership mode though, you may be putting a whole lot, you may be prepared to make trading off part of your future to give yourself a much stronger sense, or give yourself the best opportunity of making the most of whatever you've created for yourself. But the chances are that you've got great opportunities in the now simply because of what you actually did some period of time past. Very rarely are you presented with a great opportunity now if you haven't actually invested some time back. And there's the proverb: the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time's today, and that's very much about that balance in regard to that. I jumped ahead there. 3. Number 4 is actually about the values and the standards. In the end, as CEO, if you're not able to actually make your stand in regard to these things, well, who is? So you've got to shape these things as CEO, and I've talked a lot about that in the Whiteboard Wednesdays, about the need to model behaviour. That if you want to have an arrogant, indulgent approach to your role as CEO, well, you can assume that that's actually going to transcend through the organisation. You can't be critical of people if they show the same sort of values. And so that's why we spend a lot of time ensuring that our staff within our organisation, or our players within our organisation, play a major role in creating those values. But if I'm not prepared to model them as CEO, well, there can't be any expectation that that in fact that they'll live the day. They won't ever be a sustainable thing within it all. So shaping those is an important thing. So just going back over those, defining the meaningful outside, getting an understanding of what's happening outside of your organisation and the pressures, and also making sure you walk a straight line within it all. Deciding again, what business we're in, where we're really focused, and what that balance is between the present and now, and also having a really good understanding of what the values and standards are and how you set and you shape them as a CEO are critical elements. And how this applies, for instance, to a coach is that from a coaching point of view, and I say to Dean, and we talk a lot about this stuff, Dean defines, for instance, what's happening in the game, what is the best style of play, which obviously suits the player group that we've actually got, but the way that he seeks to coach, which can be successful within the competition. For example, if you went back to a Tommy Hafey kick it long to Royce strategy in today's football, well, you wouldn't succeed because the game's gone beyond that particular aspect of it. As much as some people might bemoan that's just the fact of how the game's actually evolved. So it's up to the coach to say, well, the game gets played this way and the best chance of succeeding within the game is to do these things. And he therefore has to decide what game style, as in what business he is, what game style he is required to play to be successful within that meaningful outside. He has to balance the present and the future quite clearly. In our situation as a senior coach, we're very much about building a future, but that doesn't mean we don't set great standards or high standards for our group now. They have to start to understand that. And from time to time, players miss out on a spot in the team because they may not be doing the things that they need to do now to build themselves a stronger future, even though they can potentially still play a role in the team as it sits now. But we want them to be greater players going into the future, so we're prepared to make those hard calls as we sit. And quite clearly, the coach sets the values and the standards as well. So this application, whilst it was meant for a CEO, certainly is very much applicable to Dean as the senior coach. So that's the theme for this week. What only the CEO can do, what only the senior person within an organisation can do, and that's what perhaps makes our job that little bit different. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to catching up next week.